Walking up this one hill was my nemesis. I had difficulty breathing. I had pain in my leg.
I lost my sense of taste and my sense of smell.
Brain fog, fatigue, headaches.
Because long COVID can have up to 50 symptoms associated with it, there is a lot of confusion about what is long COVID.
Not every veteran will see all of the providers, but many of the providers collaborate together in order to create a personalized health plan with the veteran and for the veteran.
I am extremely thankful to the VA to help create a roadmap for me.
If I use the starting point of once I release from the hospital, I feel tremendously better.
I have about a 70% improvement. I'm still feeling some symptoms, but I'm a lot better than when I was initially diagnosed.
And that's the good news. It does get better.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. I'm your host. My name is Travis. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, all veteran-owned businesses, Case on Shaving Company, Black Cat Designs, and Savage American Woodwork. And speaking of another veteran-owned business, a couple of years ago, I'm going through the gram and I see some confectionery. I see some fudge made by this individual named Aaron Hale, veteran himself, Purple Heart veteran. And I'm like, okay, I'm there. I'm going to try it out. There was like a discount code, Aaron. I'm going to do this thing, and I get the fudge, and I am like, wow. I said it backwards, Aaron. I said wow backwards. And then we got connected. We have had some interesting ups and downs getting on this, but we're here now. We're fully in flight. Aaron Hale of E.O.D Fudge, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, it was great. It was really cool to get some of the backstory of how E.O.D Fudge came to be, and then to actually have the fudge, in which, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had it, you should get it. So for those who are meeting you for the first time, kind of tell us about your military history and how you got to create E.O.D Fudge.
Well, it's pretty funny. We just experienced, before finally connecting here, some of the technical issues that come with being completely blind and completely deaf, and listening to the world through this one cochlear implant, which is not a hearing aid. It's my ears are completely turned off, and my eyes are prosthetics, and it's like a hearing aid. It takes sound in through the microphones, but it doesn't amplify it through the ear canal. It actually turns into a digital signal that is magnetized, and then sends that into the cochlea, where there's an electrode, and actually sends that digital signal right into the auditory nerve. Okay, so all that being said, today's medical science and the advancement in technology are absolutely amazing. 50 years ago, I've been pulling the full Helen Keller, but now this is going on. It's Bluetooth connected to both my phone and my computer, and I'm able to talk to you over the internet, and it's amazing. It's also 101 ways I can just screw something up. But to answer your question, I actually joined the Navy in 1999, and at the time, I'd absolutely known my whole life, until about a month before enlisting, that I'd never be in the military. That it wasn't in the plans. But then I didn't have much ambition for really anything. I had a pretty cozy, comfortable childhood upbringing, and loved my life. But I went to college and didn't have a whole lot of ambition and didn't get very far. So I decided I needed change I need to make a change myself, change my path. And that's when I looked to the military to give me those internal, the more selfish necessities, GI Bill, work ethic, and all that kind of stuff. And I figured I'd do 4 years, get out, get that GI Bill, and go to culinary school because I loved to cook.
Where
8 years
did that?
later.
No, wait, hold on. Where did that love for cooking come into your life, Aaron?
My family, especially my mother's side, are really talented artists, sculptors, painters. My mom, incredible sketch and paint artist. My brother as well. However, well, I actually showed a little bit of talent in the visual arts. I really loved food as an art, culinary art, because I also love to eat. But it was one of those things that I could be creative. I could experiment with different flavors and textures and cuisines and cultures and all of that. And then I could share it with others, put smiles on their faces. It just lit me up to share that joy. So I had no preconceptions, or I knew that me being a cook in the Navy wasn't going to be Wolfgang Puck type stuff. But as it turned out, I actually had a chance to do some pretty creative cooking. The only thing was that once I left, the Navy's cooking school and after basic training, I got stationed in Naples, Italy, and well, what they don't tell you is that it's the culinary specialist, CDS, was they look at it like hotel restaurant management, and I had a billet that was the hotel side. I ended up being a late night, the night desk clerk at the barracks. So that was my first 2 years in Italy. But when I hung up the uniform and went out into the economy, and I was in Italy, it was amazing. The Mount Vesuvius was right out my front door. That was the first thing I saw in the morning. And the food, the coffee, it was amazing. And I spent 2 years doing that. I did some off hours, after hours cooking for receptions and parties for the base commander, that kind of stuff. And when it was time to PCS, I actually got stationed just 45 minutes away aboard the USS LaSalle, cooking for the commander of the 6th Fleet. And I actually got to do some really honest to goodness cooking. And I spent 4 years in Italy just learning Italian cuisine, cooking for most of it, and getting to be creative with that art.
Now,
But
speaking of Italian cuisine, it's not like American Italian cuisine, right? Because I have some Italian coworkers from Italy, and what we consider good food, they really are like, what's this?
Well, you're absolutely right. But the first misconception is that there's one Italian cuisine.
Really?
Italy itself is younger than the United States. They only unified the city-states and the regions in, I think it was the 1850s.
Oh.
So everywhere you go, every region you go, from down in Sicily up to Milan, you're going to have all sorts of different cuisines. You don't go to Florence for a pizza because that Naples is the birthplace of the pizza. And that's, if you ever recognize some of the names of these pastas that you get, bolognese, that's from the city of Bologna. So all the different regions have their different styles of cooking, but one thing I did find in general is that it's simplicity and its freshness of their ingredients. They don't have as much of the processed and packaged foods that we have in the United States. So everything has to be fresh, and for good reason too.
So you do all that. And do you start to develop your, because every chef, every cook that's really proficient has their own style or their own signature dish. Did you start developing that during that time?
It definitely had a huge influence on me. But I don't know if my style is more of just a conglomeration of everything I could get my mind around and everything I could learn. I loved trying all sorts of new things, and I'm not sure if I have one particular style.
Okay. All right. So you're doing all this. What happens in your Navy career as you're going through this other part of your own self-discovery?
Well, what also happened as I was learning to love Italy was I was learning to love the Navy and service. So I was um I was gaining the work ethic, and I had goals and ambitions, and I was getting promoted before I was comfortable. I liked the higher pay grades, but I never felt as though I was ready to take on that next mantle of responsibility. But the Navy did, and my seniors, my peers did, and that was a good lesson. Is that if I'm comfortable, then I'm not growing and I'm not advancing. And it was a really good lesson I learned back then, was that I should take on difficult roles, and the Navy forced me to, pretty much. And then I'd better fill those shoes. I better learn how to be that next rank, or that NCO. But also, what was happening, I joined in a time of peace, and all of a sudden, I found myself in a time of war. Actually, we were in war with two
Yeah,
different
yeah.
fronts. So
So
I not only did I fall in love with the Navy and service, but I also uh, I felt a pull, a calling to do more than just cooking. I wanted to be of more of a service to the service and to my country and to the efforts. And I knew that I had greater talents than just the culinary creativity, and it could be better used.
So, what was the next step in your naval career when you came to that realization that you wanted to be different?
Well, I first volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan, but as a Navy cook, I would be cooking. I went from uh, cooking for the admiral and his top staff to cooking a army DFAC in Farah, Afghanistan,
Oh, wow.
for 3, 4, 5, 600 ISAF troops. So U.S., Spanish, Portuguese, and a couple platoons of Italian special forces. So I got to practice the lingo I'd learned in Italy out in the middle of Western Afghanistan. And it was also
I was told, Aaron, that the Italians had the best MREs out of all the services. Like, guys continually tell me, I thought the British had it pretty good. They're like, no, the Italians know how to eat on the go.
no,
No?
absolutely not. Everybody clamors over our MREs.
Really?
In fact, I found out that that was the best black market item you could barter for, are the MREs. And for some reason, the Army logistics the officer sent me pallets upon pallets of MREs because they didn't want because they were afraid the jingle trucks would get snowed out, like during the winter. But we were in the western desert, the lowlands, and so it didn't make any sense. We weren't up in the Hindu Kush or anything, get snowed out, but they were sending memories to everybody just to make sure. So I had the football field full of pallets of MREs. And yes, I would barter for the Italians' MREs, but because I found out that a certain module, a certain package of them actually came with a little bottle of a little cordial, a little aperitif. It came with a little tiny bottle of booze, probably half the size of an airplane, nip. And so I thought that was neat. I got a trade of a MRE, and also, I mean, you get it was a small cozy base. There wasn't a whole lot of people, and everybody kind of you wanted to get work together, and I loved hanging out with these guys. They would go up to Herat every couple of weeks, come back down with just gorilla boxes full of wheels of cheese and prosciutto, like legs of ham, and those little what are they, the vacuum packed packages of espresso grounds. Oh man. So and of course I would like, what can I do to help you out? And so I can have my morning espresso. But no, the rest of the MREs weren't impressive. No.
So you're a cook for all this time, and then you transition, like a lot of us do in the military, to a different job field in E.O.D. And we don't have to go into everything about that, but I am curious how you did go. What was the transition like going from a service MOS to a true warfighting combat related MOS?
It was on that deployment that I met some E.O.D techs for the first time, and I learned all about what the job entailed. Tight-knit brotherhood, that it's almost like a tribe within the military tribe. And the fact that it's a technically challenging as well as physically challenging job. And they're first responders on the battlefields. They're the ones that handle everything that goes boom, everything that explodes, from bullets to weapons of mass destruction and nuclear bombs, everything. And it just clicked. That's what I knew I needed to do. So the transition was actually a bit difficult. For one, I guess the Navy liked my cooking too much, because I put in a request to go Navy E.O.D and they said no. It was denied. And when my deployment to Afghanistan was up, my contract was actually coming to an end. And I had this decision to make. I was either going to stay a cook in the Navy, and I absolutely did love being a sailor, but I definitely knew that I wanted to transition. And I took my my service record. I walked over to the Army recruiter. I said, I want to go E.O.D. And the only question was, did I want to get the bonus or keep my rank? I said, can I do both? They just laughed. But before I knew it, I was being promoted anyways. And this time I was in a different uniform and doing a different job. So the transition from being a cook to an E.O.D tech wasn't all that difficult, except the school is itself very demanding, very intensive, highly knowledge based, and there's a very high attrition rate just because the testing is so rigorous. Funny thing was, though, the transition from sailor to soldier, it was kind of funny because before I went to the Navy or to the E.O.D school, they sent me to this warrior transition course, which is a kind of a pilot program for them. It was like a gentleman's version of basic training, all of the technical aspects of it without the indoctrination. And so I didn't get the Navy, boot camped out of me into the Army, but that's all right. I loved becoming an E.O.D technician. I loved the Army. I still love the Navy, and it was just a fantastic. I was excited the entire time, so it wasn't like I was struggling at any point. And when there's a great book, the Happiness Advantage,
Yep.
and the fulcrum and the lever. When you're having a good time, everything seems easier.
True. I don't want to focus too much on the situation around the injury that led you to lose your sight and your hearing as it is. What I'd rather do, if we could, is you served as an E.O.D tech, you got hurt, you survived it. What I'd like to focus on the rest of our time is this aspect where you're in this state where you decided to make E.O.D Fudge and this confectionery stuff, where all those lessons you learned from cooking to being in the Navy to being happy and having that fulcrum led to your business now.
Well, now we've got multiple businesses, actually.
Okay. Well, I was just focused on the fudge.
Well,
but tell me about the rest of the stuff. I mean, this is I learn something new every day.
The truth is that it was after my injury. Of course, I couldn't do the job any longer. They did send me back to the schoolhouse so I could become an instructor for a while, at least until the med board was through. But in the meantime, I also began running, whitewater kayaking, mountain climbing, speaking, and realized that I didn't have anything more to prove anyways, so I didn't mind hanging up the uniform. And I was doing pretty well for almost 4 years before the meningitis nearly killed me. It was a complication from the blast, and that's what took my hearing. So it was when I was just sitting after getting out of the hospital for the second time, I'm just sitting at my breakfast bar, trapped in my body. Like the whole world ended at my fingertips, and I couldn't get a message in. My girlfriend at the time, my wife now, was writing every letter of every single word that she needed to say to me in the palm of my hand. Of course, capital block letters like a good soldier. That I needed to get busy at something. I needed to do something. All of the talking, assistive technologies, the talking phone, the computers, all of it was muted, right?
Wow.
So all I could do, and I actually lost my inner ear balance, the vestibular balance, at the same time. And I couldn't even get on my treadmill. I started running marathons. In fact, just months prior to the meningitis, I run the Boston Marathon for the first time. So I'm there feeling sorry for myself. Really, I've been speaking and talking about, triumph over tragedy and success through struggle and all that kind of cool thing. And here I was, somebody, some greater power saying, put your money where your mouth is, prove it. And I'm just thinking, have I paid enough? What if I had my fair share? What if I paid my dues? And it was the exact opposite. It was going down this depressing spiral. And that's when I just kind of like I started doing the boohoo me, and I said, I gotta get busy at something. So I knew that I could cook. I could still cook, even though I couldn't see what I was cooking. I couldn't even hear what I was cooking. I could still feel, taste, smell. And the holidays were coming, and I just decided we were going to throw this huge Thanksgiving feast. And I started making fudge
Well,
way in advance.
because I'm looking on your website right now, and I'm like, you know what, Travis, you're trained. You shouldn't be looking at any of this stuff. And I was going to ask, how do you go from like cooking to all this fudge? And you kind of just answered it. It is, Aaron. This is artwork. This isn't like a cookie cutter candy company. Like you put some love into this stuff. Like the ultimate colossal apple is, I'm eyeballing that, Aaron. That might have to find its way home. But what started happening when you started embracing fudge?
Well, the first thing that happened, in fact, my wife said she noticed two things. One was that I was just cooking batch after batch, and she'd seen it the first time in 6 months. She'd seen a smile on my face. And the other thing was the fudge was just piling up. I was having a good time, and I was just cooking, and she started sneaking it out the front door. Like, it got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy, but she was giving it away, and people were coming back and asking if they could buy more. And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you may. And Extraordinary Delights, or EODFudge.com, just kind of happened.
The thing that I liked the most when I bought the fudge from you, it came in the mail, opened up, and there was like a little note about, what you put into your work, and thank you so much for buying it. Speaking of capitalism, what's the business side of this like? Because I don't know personally a lot of veterans who do stuff like this.
It was difficult. It was a learning process from the beginning, because I'd never been more than a W-2 employee until we decided we were just going to sell these things. And then it was use cash, and it was under the table first. And our first sold batch of fudge that we sold went out on our own platters, like Chinaware, for a birthday party or a baby shower or something. And so we didn't know what we were doing. So we got online, we ordered boxes, and before you knew it, like my garage, I turned that thing into a gym. So I've got the treadmill, I've got the rower, I've got the stationary bike, and now then there was the shrink wrap machine. But then we learn, rules about selling food, consumable, items, and mail, like direct mail shipping from state to state, so interstate commerce type rules. And then it was accounting, creating entities and LLC, all this kind of stuff. It was all a learning process. And eventually we got to the point where we were getting enough sales through our website and word of mouth that we were actually doing enough volume that it wasn't like bake sale levels any longer. And we had to move out of our own home kitchen and have an OSHA approved commercial kitchen. And then it was that decision point where, how do we do that? Do we buy or rent, lease a kitchen? Or what we found is we could do is hire a co-packer or a contract food manufacturer. We found a larger candy company that makes great stuff, and they took my recipes, and they do all of the cooking, they do all of the packaging and shipping, and I get to keep the home kitchen as the R&D lab.
Oh, now one question, if I may, I have to ask this because how are you not the size of a house, Aaron? Because I don't know if I was making my own, and let me tell you that the fudge was fire, brother. The fudge was absolutely fire. Like, I'm like thinking to myself, Travis, if you had this in your kitchen every day, you'd be 3 times the size you are now. And I'm not a small guy, Aaron. How do you stay so fit and trim cooking fudge, Aaron? It doesn't seem fair.
Well, it I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but I love to run and I love to be outside. And like I mentioned earlier, before the uh before the meningitis and going deaf, I'd I'd run a few marathons and a few of them qualified me for Boston. And then uh, after I went deaf and lost my balance, and I was started cooking. Yeah, I also started gaining a little bit of weight, and it was another one of those decision points where I said I need to do something about this, and I got back on the treadmill, and I held on with iron grip, and I just hit the quick start to like 0.5 miles an hour, and I just started walking, and then I would hit the little button and go a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and before long I was running again. And I went deaf in September of 2015. In September of 2016, I ran my hometown of Akron. I ran the Akron Marathon. Is also my high school 20th reunion. And so I went back to my hometown and ran my comeback marathon, which also qualified me again for Boston. And I've been running ever since. Now I'm doing ultra marathons. So half my day is spent on the treadmill or out on the road with running guide, running partners. And um, I try to keep like I said, the R&D. I try not to do that too much
All right,
because
all right.
of course you got to taste your product.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, in the time we have left, just 2 things. You know, you look at your website. I've watched some of your interviews on TV, and there's this message of, you know, I think you said it best earlier: the happiness and the fulcrum. Is it a challenge to stay in your state of happiness throughout all the challenges you face daily?
It's in how you perceive your challenges,
Okay.
because our life is hardship is inevitable. Challenges are going to happen no matter what. You're you're gonna end up with a blown tire, or you're gonna be in the hospital. You're gonna lose a family member. Things are gonna happen in your life, and you can either look at it as this difficulty that you have to suffer so that you can finally get around it or through it or whatever and just make it out on the other side. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And every time I find a new challenge, I try to keep that that perspective, is like, how is this going to make me better? How is this, instead of this happening to me, why is this happening for me? And not only what can I learn from it, what can I learn from it that I can teach? One of my favorite sayings, I have no idea where it came from, but somebody said, you know, your the story of your struggle might be someone else's blueprint for survival. And I've just been blessed with this incredible story, and I know that's because I've been told that it's helped quite a few lives. So that makes me that makes me feel great. That I can help others just by telling them that it'll be okay. That I'm feeling, I have an incredibly rewarding life. I've got a wife, 3 amazing sons. I've got this business, an active lifestyle. It's a wonderful life, and it's because I've accepted the life's hardships and the difficulties, and I choose to grow from them, not just endure them.
I think that message right there comes through very clearly in your cooking and what you have E.O.D Fudge all about. It's not just a fudge company. It is that way of facing life's challenges. And so we'll close with this. How can people, besides the obvious, find E.O.D Fudge to order your amazing creations, Aaron?
They can go right to the website, eodfudge.com.
I will have that link in the Oscar Mike Radio website post. Look, folks, take it from me, because I like to eat probably more than you do, Aaron. Just guessing here. But I enjoyed the fudge. You will too. And I want to have you back on. If you go up to Boston for the marathon, I'm in the Boston area. Would definitely love to come meet you in person. And I just want to thank you for your flexibility and candor today talking with me.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Travis.
Absolutely. Until next time, we're mission in flight. Thank you very much.
Join us on National Wreaths Across America Day, December 16th, 2023. Each December on National Wreaths Across America Day, our mission to remember, honor, and teach is carried out by coordinating wreath-laying ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery, as well as more than 3,700 additional locations in all 50 states, at sea and abroad. Join us by sponsoring a veteran's wreath at a cemetery near you, volunteering, or donating to a local sponsor group.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 998 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.